Hey, what's going on, guys? Tobin here with you. Hope everybody's doing fantastic out here as we get to a Thursday. Took a couple days off from the channel. It's been a little bit quiet on the Dame front, but I do have a video coming out on Dame in a bit. But I wanted to get to this. This was interesting. There was a great tweet the other day. Shout out to this guy, Steph at Steph X Ghost. And he had this tweet. I don't know if he had an inkling that this article was coming out or not, but it was this great just a tweet where he goes, "You truly had to be there to believe it." And it was basically a run of the Miami Heat's 2016, 2017, 30-11 run. And it's just, you see all the incredible wins in a row and the run that they had where they just couldn't be stopped. You know, it was an insane, type of run that they went on. A team that was probably truly the closest the Miami Heat had ever come to tanking. You know, that there was I remember Pat Riley was on he was getting interviewed by David Aldridge and was talking about this, where it was like, the 2016 half of things went really, really bad. The team, they just couldn't get things together. And they really had to think about, was this going to be the time where they had to hit the reset button? You know, they had just lost D Wade. It had been a disaster, and they had these ragtag guys, James Johnson, and they signed Dion Waiters that year, and you're just like, where is this team going? What is truly this team's ceiling? Where do they have any chance of going? It looked like a disaster, and then lo and behold, Dion Waiters, who was dealing with some health issues that year, was got a little healthy. And then him and Goran Dragic, along with James Johnson, really was able to get on this incredible run, and the team just couldn't be stopped. And they had just Dion Waiters was having thrilling game winners against Cleveland. And then everybody remembers the iconic Warriors shot that he had where he poses at the middle of the court. And Heat fans really fell in love with that team. They really, really did. And so the reason I bring that up and Steph's tweet was Dion Waiters recently, and I don't know if this spurred his tweet or whatever, but held a workout in Las Vegas for teams because he's trying to make an NBA comeback. And he just did this interview with Chris Haynes where he was basically bearing his soul out there and talking about that he knows one of the reasons in the league that he's not in the league right now is because of his attitude. That he just wasn't a good teammate, didn't handle things well. Talked a lot about that he's gone through a lot of dark stuff in his life and that he didn't know how to handle it, and that he's, going to therapy, and, just a lot of accountability, a lot of growth from Dion Waiters, who's now 31 and, a former number 4 overall pick who had already been dealing with his own tumultuous stuff during his career of being in Cleveland, then kind of getting ousted, then having a nice little run in OKC. But even after that was thinking there was going to be this grand pot of gold, and there just never was until he had this run with the Miami Heat. And the Miami Heat gave him a lucrative 4-year deal. And after he signed that contract, it just all went to hell in a handbasket for him. Never really could get quite healthy. That was a big thing with him. And then on top of that, there were some issues of the kind of shape that he was in because he was dealing with a foot/ankle thing. But I'm telling you, man, that 2017 run by Philly Cheese, that was something special. And we didn't see it coming because a lot of people were just like, Dion Waiters, this is the heir to losing Dwayne Wade. Remember this? He just lost Dwayne Wade, and it was just a very low time for Heat fans. You're like, what is this team's identity without having Dwayne Wade? Who are these guys? And Dion Waiters was just lighting it up. Him and Gogi, 7-11. They were an incredible catalyst. But yeah, it was a bad divorce between Dion Waiters and the Miami Heat. He got suspended multiple times, and that's what a lot of this article talks about. His breakup with the Heat. I think he had been suspended 3 different times. Everybody remembers, and I'm even guilty of this. Who didn't make fun of the gummy incident on the plane? Apparently, Dion Waiters had a panic attack for having a weed infused gummy, And I mean, that was just going to, live in infamy that Dion Waiters was having a bad trip on a trip. And he, got suspended, dealt with a lot of discipline issues. He called out Eric Spoelstra one time on social media where he was he was very unhappy. And then it basically said that Spo's only great because he had D-Wade, LeBron, so a lot of lashing out on social media, wasn't happy with the situation. And this is for, a team that gave Dion Waiters the multi-year deal that nobody else was. Nobody else was really doing that. But, you see him now at this crossroads of his life where he's trying to get back into the league and see what he's able to do. I think there was a lot of cool stuff about him being a father, and he's trying to explain to his son why he's not in the league, why he's not in the league about attitude. And Andre Drummond recently had a thing about this too. I saw on his Instagram where he was giving a speech to some kids talking about I was $100 million man going to a minimum because of my attitude, which I do think is a big deal. I think that a lot of guys, a lot of teams will keep guys around, better vibe guys, better, locker room guys. You have to be really talented to be a pain in the ass. And one of the things with Philly Cheese was he had this incredible run. He just never could really catch it. But everybody recognizes the talent. Even his last year with the Heat, before the divorce ended up happening and he got traded to Memphis before getting released, and then ended up, of course, back with the Lakers where he was champ cheese, even though he didn't really play for that team very much. Even then, there was I believe it was against the Clippers. The Heat were really banged up. And I had even thought to that point, I remember thinking that year, because the Heat were dealing with a lot of injuries early on, were they costing themselves with too much of this culture jail? Because they weren't even playing James Johnson. And I was like, does this make sense? James Johnson is a perfect role guy for this team. Wasn't playing James Johnson, wasn't playing Dion Waiters. They just basically were moved on from that era. We've gone to the Jimmy Butler era. We've completely moved on. But there was this one game against the Clippers. It was one of Kawhi's first game with the Clippers, and Dion Waiters lit it up. I don't remember the exact numbers, but I remember him basically going toe-to-toe with Kawhi Leonard, and they lost, but they nearly pulled it out. And you're like, damn, Dion, that guy still got it. He is talented. If he gets on a run, you better watch out, especially when he gets that confidence going. But this was the quote on his time in Miami, because it's a really good article. I don't want to read the entire thing, but it's a Q&A with Chris Haynes, and it's very interesting. And Dion Waiters, fascinating guy to talk to. Always really introspective with interviews. Always a really honest dude. Always a fun guy to talk to. I think I did 2 on the show before with him, and really enjoyed it. I don't know but he had a Goosey's article where he wrote one for the Players Tribune, and it was, this, because he ended up having this ankle injury right at the end of the year, and he wasn't able to play, and he just missed the playoffs that year. And I remember how disappointed Eric Spoelstra was. He really, really enjoyed the tenacity of that team. How could you not? To go from basically tanking to, finishing 500. It was such a crazy thing that they did. And Dion Waiters wrote this article. It was for the Players Review, just about that they were the dangerous team. Don't let them get in. Kind of like how this team really was this year, where you wouldn't want to face an 8 seed. That was basically the Heat. You don't want to face this team if you get in the playoffs because of how confident they were. But Dion Waiters, this is what he said. He says, is there one incident in particular that still bothers you in terms of not handling the situation the right way? And he says, yes, that last year with the Miami Heat. And just understanding what was going on in that situation, I was so irresponsible and immature. I let the Heat down. They were good to me, and I did not handle it well at all. The things that were going on were avoidable, and if I had just shut the hell up and let my agent handle stuff, and if I did that, we wouldn't even be here today. I'd still be playing. Everything happens for a reason. I look myself in the mirror already, bro. I read my rights. I read my wrongs, and I just keep pushing, moving forward, and living with the results. And yeah, it was just I had gotten why Dion Waiters would be disgruntled in that situation, because you walk into this team, you think of yourself as this superstar, this uncrowned, unpaid superstar, You lead this team on this incredible run. Just bad luck and injuries kind of keep you out of it. But the thing that was a big, I think, misstep of trust with the team was like there was some issues with the ankle, and I think the Heat and Dion Waiters had disagreed how he had rehabbed when he had already gotten paid. And I don't know if Dion Waiters just wasn't even that happy with the contracts that the Heat had offered, because it wasn't like a max. I think he signed like a 4-year 48, which is good money. But certainly was a lot for Dion Waiters. But Dion Waiters maybe thought of himself as a max. I don't know why it led down that road. But Dion Waiters didn't do the rehab they had wanted to, and basically you lost him the next year. Didn't play. You didn't get anything from Philly Cheese. They ended up getting D Wade the next year for in the middle of the season, and you got a little bit of that. And he always admired D Wade. He called himself Kobe Wade. So I thought this was a fascinating thing, kind of down memory lane of this with Dion Waiters making a comeback. I do wonder, is that something is that a road the Heat would go down? Would you go down bringing back Dion Waiters? Because, this is a team that clearly, they bring back Jay Rich, who, is very close to Bam. It's kind of always the did everything Spo ass thing. Dion Waiters is not that. But you think about this situation this year, if they do have to give up, Tyler Hero, hell, if they have to end up giving up Jaime Jaquez, if they have to give up, Caleb Martin, do they need a little bit more punch off the bench? Will that be a thing? I don't know. Who knows what the Kyle Lowry situation is. Is there a situation where you could see yourself going and saying, let's bring in Dion Waiters, or let's just say in the scenario they have Damian Lillard, is that too much of a risk? Because look, Dion Waiters is saying all the right things. It's great to hear that Dion Waiters seems like he's improving himself from an emotional standpoint, is handling some stuff and realizes what he did. But wanted to say it, one, if he gets into a situation and Spo's not playing him again, will it be okay? Will he be just the player that keeps his head down and doesn't cause a bit of chaos because he thinks he's more talented than everybody? I don't know. I think that you can see it from time to time. The talent is undeniable. Hasn't played meaningful basketball in a while, since that Kawhi Leonard, had a little run with the Lakers, got a few games in there, but hasn't played since, getting a ring from that COVID season. So, we're talking 3 seasons now. That's a lot of time off. It's a lot of time off for a guy who hasn't played in a long, long time. But thought it was a fascinating thing because I think a lot of Heat fans, for all these years of going for the championship and Riley trying to get it over the goal line and getting his whale, that team that had that run with that was sparked by Dion and Goran Dragic was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that team. I thought that I loved that team. I loved Big James Johnson guy. Loved JJ. With what he brought to the table on that team too. Just, people's perceptions change when you get the money. It's one thing to do this, be the scrappy team doing it at all the minimums, and it's another thing when people are paying you, 15, 16 million a year, and people are expecting the consistency all the time, and so is the organization. And it's unfortunate that things unraveled the way they did, but very very interesting to hear this from Philly Cheese.